So in this chapter, we're going to cover some really important grammar issues. This is really the most important chapter in this book because it affects the way you write and speak. However, you need to go through the rest of the book to gain the background for understanding the issues in this chapter. Some of the issues have been touched upon in other chapters. Here are a few others. Run-on sentences and fragments. One of the most important things to do when you are writing is to avoid run-on sentences. Another is to avoid writing sentence fragments, although there is a time and place for them, but not in formal writing. Run-on sentences. A run-on sentence can be any length. Some people think a run-on sentence is just a really long sentence, but a sentence can be a mile long and still be a perfectly legitimate sentence, although perhaps not a very well-written one. After I got up this morning, I went out for a run, and then I came back and took the dog for a walk, and then I ate breakfast and got dressed because I had to go to work. And then number 2, I read, my sister sewed. Sentence number 1 is not a run-on, although it is very long and not very well written. Sentence 2 is a run-on. Why? Because sentence 2 has an unnecessary comma. So you have 2 independent clauses. I read is an independent clause. My sister sewed is another independent clause. So here you need to have a period. Okay, so when you have an unnecessary comma, this is known as a comma splice. This one actually is grammatically correct, but it just talks on and on and on and on, and this person needs to not have so many and use more transition words. A run-on sentence that is actually 2 or more sentences that are strung together and not separated properly. So look at sentence 2 above. It contains 2 complete sentences separated by a comma. You cannot separate 2 complete sentences with a comma. Yes, I am yelling to make my point here. Here are some correct ways to separate sentences. You can put a period to separate them instead of the comma, and then start the second one with a capital letter. I read, my sister sewed. You can use a comma, but add a conjunction. I read, and my sister sewed. You can use a semicolon if the sentences are closely related. Do not use a capital letter after a semicolon. I read, semicolon, my sister sewed. You can use a colon if the second sentence is a result of the first sentence or explains that first sentence. I read to my sister, colon, she does not know how to read yet. Any of the other 3 ways to fix this sentence would work, as well as using the colon, which isn't used too often to connect sentences. There is never a right time to use a run-on sentence. Sentence fragments. Sentence fragments are words that are put together and followed by a period, but they are not complete thoughts. Sometimes writers use fragments for effects, and that is okay as long as they are aware that they are fragments. If you are trying to pass something off as a sentence, but it is a fragment, now that is a problem. Usually the fragments that a writer thinks might be real sentences are dependent adverb clauses. The clauses that begin with although, since, whenever, wherever, until, and especially because. Because I just met you yesterday is not a sentence. You need to add a whole independent clause to it to make a sentence. So because I just met you today, that is a dependent clause. Because, get that, because, that's funny. Anyway, because this word, because, is a subordinating conjunction. And every time you have a subordinating conjunction that starts a sentence, you automatically have a dependent clause. And when you have a dependent clause, you have a sentence fragment. So in order to finish the thought, you need to have another complete sentence in order to have a complex sentence. So that's how you fix sentence fragments. Because I just met you yesterday, I cannot go in the car with you. I wouldn't recommend using fragments in cover letters or college essays. However, there is a time and place for a well-written fragment for effect. So you could use sentence fragments in creative writing, such as if you're writing a poem, if you're writing a book, for special effect, for dramatic effect. But if you're going to write an academic research paper, which is the most common kind of essay you're going to write in college, then you do not use sentence fragments. So many authors, including me, use them in our book, Enough Said, fragment. So here is a sample paragraph from a short story that uses 2 fragments for effect. So short stories, drama, plays, any kind of creative literature that you would take in your creative writing class or your introduction to literature class, then you can use fragments for effect, such as if you're writing an interior monologue. But once again, and this bears repeating, for your academic research essay, we do not use sentence fragments because it's way too conversational. So here is a sample paragraph from a short story that uses 2 fragments for effect. She was tall, very tall. She made her way over to the buffet line, and he couldn't help staring at her. He wanted to follow her and to say something witty, something to catch her attention. And so very tall and something to catch her attention are both fragments, but they're used to, for dramatic effect. So that's okay if you're writing a creative story, but when we're writing an academic essay, we avoid run-ons and fragments. Subject-verb agreement. Agreement means that verbs agree in number with their subjects, and pronouns agree in number and gender with their antecedents. Huh? Okay, let's simplify that. If your subject is singular, the verb that goes with that subject must also be singular. If the subject is plural, its verb must also be plural. Yes, there are singular and plural verb forms. Generally, the distinction is mostly in present tense. Take the verb run. You would say, she runs. But you would then say, for the plural form, you would say, they run. And so, runs, then, is the singular form of the verb, since it sounds right with he, a singular pronoun. We don't say he run. We say they run, because run is the plural form of the verb. It is the opposite of nouns. The noun with the s at the end is the plural, usually, but the plural verb form is usually the one without the s. That's where people get confused. The purpose of a pronoun is to take the place of a noun or another pronoun. The antecedent is the word that pronoun is taking the place of. The pronoun must agree in both number, singular and plural, and gender, male or female, with its antecedent. Judy brought her suitcase. Judy is singular and female, so we use her to replace it. We don't use him, male, or they, plural. Usually, subject-verb agreement is pretty simple, and we do it just because it sounds right that way. And while that is true, there are some issues that make it more complicated than it seems. We will discuss those in the following sections. Interrupting words and phrases with subject-verb agreement. Sue goes to college. Goes is singular and agrees with Sue. Sue, along with her brothers and cousins, goes to college. It's still singular because along with her brothers and sisters is a prepositional phrase, and we have to ignore the prepositional phrase, and we still stick to Sue as the subject, goes as the verb. Sue, accompanied by her brother, goes to dance lessons. And once again, accompanied by her brother is a reduced adjective clause. So we don't use that. And therefore, the reduced adjective clause or phrase, in this case, reduced adjective phrase or clause, modifies Sue. So it's kind of like a an adjective. So therefore, Sue is still the singular subject that takes the singular verb goes. Phrases such as along with, together with, as well as, in addition to, accompanied by, including, except, and not do not make a singular subject plural. If you have a positive subject and then a negative subject, the verb agrees with the positive subject. Sue, but not her brothers, is going to college. So here it's still singular. Okay, so still singular, and it's still Sue is going to college. Prepositional phrases, prepositional and other phrases inserted between subject and verb do not change the number of the subject. The photographer for the 3 weddings has not been selected. So for the 3 weddings is a prepositional phrase. So you have to ignore that. So then here, the photographer is the subject, and then singular subject takes singular verb has. The painting that we ordered when we ordered the 6 frames has not arrived yet. So here, that we ordered when we ordered is a dependent clause. So we ignore the dependent clause, adjective clause, and we say the painting has not arrived yet. So that painting is a singular subject that takes a singular verb. Mary, along with her brothers, is going to college. They walk 3 miles every day. The dresses for the wedding party, so we ignore wedding party, the dresses have not yet been chosen. The pizza, in addition to the salad and desserts, so we ignore in addition to all of this, the pizza is. The dog that I adopted when I still had the other 2 dogs, so we ignore the entire dependent clause, and the dog, which is a singular subject, goes with live, not lives. He lives, it goes with lives. Okay, dog lives, he lives, she lives, yeah. So singular subject dog goes with singular verb lives. Using an, or, nor, this changes, yeah. When you have and is always plural. No matter what, if you have 2 subjects, Jack and Jill, Bob and Mary, always, when you have a compound subject, always, when you have both and when you have and, it's always plural. Okay, so that covers Jack and Jill are going up the hill. The boy and the girl are going up the hill. Both the boys and the girls are going up the hill. Both the boys and the girl are, anything with both and, it doesn't even matter, okay? Anything with both and is always going to be plural. Then that changes. As soon as you have or nor, usually that can be either plural or singular depending on the subjects. We are not adding them together as we do with and. Look at the following examples. John or his brother is going with us. Singular, one or the other. The boys or the girls are going first. Plural, it is either boys or girls, and each plural by itself. Either the girl or her brothers. And so when you have either or, we ignore the first subject and we go with the second subject. And so the answer is either the girl or her brothers are going with us, because either or it's different than both and. When you got both and, okay, both and, everything is always plural. But either or depends on the second subject. So that's where it's tricky. So either the girl or her brothers are going with us. Either the girls or the boy is going with us. So when you have either or, so the word that is closer to the verb, that's what the subject is. Okay, so that's the difference. Either or, neither nor. Take this, and not only but also. So all 3 of those take this construction. Choose the correct verb that agrees with the subject. John and his friends, so and always plural. So John and his friends are going fishing. Either John or Uncle Fred is renting a boat. Either Juliet and her sister has your books. Either the red dress with the bows or the 3 green shirts were on sale. So here when you have either or, we go with the second noun, which is were, but I don't remember which. Neither the trumpet player nor the tuba player is tuned up yet. So here you go with the second subject, is. So that is really complicated, but once you get the idea, it's easy. All the rules in the preceding section apply to pronoun antecedent agreement as well as subject-verb agreement. Look at these examples. Judy, along with her friends, is bringing her suitcase, singular. Judy, accompanied by her friends, is going to her prom, singular. Judy, but not her friends, is going to her prom, singular. The painting that we ordered when we ordered the 3 frames is in its box. So here, that we ordered when we ordered the 3 frames, that's all a dependent clause. And then you have the painting is in its box. So the painting is subject, is the verb, in its box is a prepositional phrase. Either Judy or her sister is bringing her guitar. Either Judy or her sisters. So always when you have either or, the second subject is the second, in other words, the noun that's closest to the subject is the subject of the sentence. So therefore, since this is plural, then this becomes a plural verb. You're going to have a plural noun, pronoun. You're going to have a plural pronoun, their guitars. Either her sisters or Judy is bringing her guitar. So either Judy or her brother is bringing his guitar. One is female and the other is female. What do? How about just saying a guitar? Rewriting to avoid an issue is often the best solution. So sometimes you want to avoid gender if you don't know what the gender of that person is or you're not sure how to address that person. And so therefore just avoid his or her altogether, and you could just rewrite your sentence to avoid his and her. Even though a sentence may begin with the word there, the word there is never a subject. In this type of sentence, the subject will be right after the verb. So you can figure out if the verb should be singular or plural by looking at the noun or pronoun after the verb. There are, so there is not a subject. You have to go look after the verb. 3 books is the subject, so therefore the verb has to be plural. There is 3 books on that shelf. So no, this is not a correct sentence, because here you have 3 books. So here you got to take are. So here you have Ellen along with her sisters along with her sisters, right? Along with, this is a prepositional phrase, so you ignore this. See, I almost got caught. So this is Ellen is bringing her lunch. Either my cousins or my uncles are taking vacations in France. There are 3 pieces of pizza left in the box. Either John or Kate is singing in their first concert ever, or their first concert, because you're not sure which is which, so you just say there. When you're not sure, you just plural, just make it plural. There are not many apples left on the tree, because apples is the subject. And anytime you have the word many, you know that it's plural. That's a dead giveaway, because many always precedes a noun that's plural. So therefore you know that the verb is plural. So you get clues from looking at the sentence. Indefinite pronouns probably present the biggest issue with pronoun antecedent agreement. We have discussed these pronouns before in chapter 6. Some of them, like everyone, everything, everyone, everything, everybody, anyone, anything, anybody, someone, something, somebody, no one, nothing, nobody, each, either, nothing, and one are all singular. Everyone is bringing his or her suitcase. Everyone is singular. The verb is and is also is singular. The pronoun his or her refers back to everyone because it is also singular. So most people would say, everyone is bringing their suitcase. Is this okay? Yeah, but why are you using their, but everyone is singular? Well, that's because you want to be gender neutral. These days, you want to be gender neutral, so you use their, even though in the old days, before the gender neutral before the gender neutral, everyone was gender. In other words, you would have his or her. So traditionally, you would say everyone is bringing his or her suitcase. But now that you got to be gender neutral, you use plural. Yes and no. The English language doesn't have one word for the singular that can be either male or female. Of course, if we know that only girls are going, we can easily say her suitcase, problem solved. But if both boys and girls are going, we have no singular word for that without using his or her. Unlike other languages will have other pronouns. It is perfectly fine to use his or her. It is also now acceptable to use their as a singular in this case. Yeah, that's what I've been doing. Every time I come up with everyone is bringing, and then I'm like, oh, should I be using his or her? Okay, I got to be more gender neutral, so I just go off and just say their. So yeah, I've been doing that too. And also in business class, when they teach you to be gender neutral, and they teach you to say, don't say businessman, you have to say you don't say businessman or businesswoman. You say business person. You don't say fireman. You say first responder. That sort of thing. In that lesson, then they tell you, oh, and you don't say everyone is bringing his or her suitcase. You say everyone is bringing their suitcase. So when they teach you like gender neutral, how to be gender neutral in business language, they also include, oh, you should be using their instead of his or her. So one way of avoiding all of that is if avoiding the he, she, and all of that is just put in a indefinite pronoun. Everyone, you just rewrite the sentence. Everyone is bringing a suitcase. Now the words both, few, and several are indefinite pronouns, but both, few, several, and many are always plural. Several are bringing their suitcases. Few are bringing their suitcases. Both are bringing their suitcases. Many are bringing their suitcases. So both, few, several, and many are always plural. However, all, any, more, most, none, and some can either be singular or plural depending upon how they are used. Usually they are followed by a prepositional phrase. Look at the noun in that phrase. The verb generally agrees with the noun in the phrase. All of the pie is gone. So when you have all of or any, the verb generally agrees with the noun in the phrase. All of the cookies are gone. Any of the children can take their naps. Any of the cake is available to cut. Most of the pizza is gone, then left on the plate. Most of the pieces have been eaten. Most of the cake is gone. Most of the cookies are gone. Most of the pizza is left. None of the pieces are left. Some of the people have left. Some of the crowd has gone. One of is generally singular. One of my books is missing. So one of is similar to each and every because you're just talking about one thing. Singular nouns that look plural. News, mathematics, thermodynamics, and other such words that end in S are singular, although they may look plural. So we use singular verbs with them. The news is good. Mathematics is my favorite subject. Collective nouns. We discussed collective nouns in Chapter 1. They are nouns that, while singular, represent a group. They can generally also be made plural. Here are some regular forms of collective nouns. So note, if you're talking about the whole, for example, family, if you're talking about the entire family as a group, then it's singular. If you're talking about the different members of the family, then it becomes plural. So that's why collective nouns can be either plural or singular, depending upon if you're mentioning everybody as a group, then it's singular, or every single member, and then it becomes plural. So people usually use verbs and pronouns with these words. The band is playing in the parade. The class is having its party today. However, there is a distinction to be made. Sometimes these collective nouns are plural when we use plural verbs to agree with them. However, sometimes we sound wrong because most everyone just uses them as singular all the time. Check this out. The band are tuning their instruments. In the above example, we used a plural verb and a plural pronoun, thus assuming the band is plural. But is it? So here, they're acting as individuals. That's what I was saying down there. If you're talking about the individual, like one band member is tuning his instrument, but another band member is going to the bathroom while another band member is eating lunch. So each of the band members are doing something different. Then when you're talking about different band members, then you would say the band, when they're acting as individuals, okay, then you would have, then it's different, okay? So here you would say the band are tuning their instruments because it's plural, because they are acting as individuals. It's singular if they're acting as a group together. So the band is having a party. So as a group, the whole band is having a party. So that assumes that all of the members of the band are all doing the same thing. So if everybody in a group is all doing the same thing, then it's one whole group as a unit. Then it becomes singular. Can you see the difference in these sentences? My family is coming over for dinner. So this means my entire family, everybody is so therefore if it's an entire group, singular. My family are coming from all over the country to visit us for Christmas. So this means that the different family members, each member, therefore it's plural, are coming from all over the country to visit us for Christmas. So in the first sentence, the family is a unit, all coming together, singular. In the second sentence, the individuals in the family are being talked about since they are all coming from different places. They are not a unit. Will the sky fall if you use a singular verb with a collective noun? No. In fact, if you use a plural, it may sound wrong to some people. However, it is correct to make the distinction between singular and plural collective nouns. A quirky little issue. All the girls wore a gown to the prom. Be careful here. Did all the girls wear the same gown? The sentence is confusing. The correct way to say or write this sentence is all the girls wore gowns to the prom. So here you could have some more practice. Now comparisons. So here you have two kinds of comparisons. You have a comparative and a superlative. When we're comparing two things, we have a comparative. When we're comparing more than two things, it's known as a superlative. So if I'm doing a comparative, you would use ER and then. I am taller than you. John is shorter than you. So adjectives and adverbs have comparatives and superlatives used for comparison. So I am taller than you. First of all, remember to use than in comparisons, and THEN, then, is an adverb that has to do with time. So people confuse than and then all the time. Use the comparative form of the adjective or adverb when comparing two items. I am taller than you. So here you have, when the adjective is just like one syllable, and it's a comparative, you add an ER. So where you're comparing two things and the adjective is just one syllable, then you add ER and then. When you're doing a superlative, that means that you're comparing more than two things. Like you're comparing to the whole class of 50 people. So I am the tallest. So then suddenly it becomes EST of the three of us brothers. So when we're doing comparing two things, we use ER, and when we're doing superlatives, we use EST. Now we're going to talk about when we use EST. So here, forming comparatives, we use colder, smaller, taller, smaller, colder, warmer, hotter, sooner. Notice how all of these verbs, all of these adjectives, all are like one syllable. So when it's just one syllable, then that means we add ER. Then when you're doing the superlatives, and that means you're comparing to more than three things, and it's one syllable, then you add EST, 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 and EST. But if it's more than one syllable, then we use, what happened? There are, of course, exceptions. One of them is fun. There is no funner or funnest. It is more fun or most fun. Also better. So you don't say more good and gooder than, okay? You don't, you have to say better than, worse than, or something like that. So better than. So two-syllable adjectives. So when you have two syllables, most add ER for comparative. If they end in Y, the Y changes to an I, thus making the ending IER. Others have no form ending in ER, particularly adverbs. In this case, use more for comparatives. Funnier, prettier, lonelier, more sudden, more quickly, or more slowly. Most add EST for superlatives. If they end in Y, the Y generally changes to an I, thus making the ending IEST. Others have no form ending in EST. In that case, use most for superlatives. Funniest, prettiest, loneliest, most sudden, most quickly, most slowly. If there is a form that ends in ER or EST, use it. Do not use more or most before the adjectives unless no ER or EST form exists. Consult your dictionary to find out. For example, do not say more happy since there is a correct word, happier. Usually if it's more than three syllables, like intelligent, then you would use, if you're doing a comparison, you would say more intelligent than, less intelligent than. And then if you're doing a superlative, you would say most intelligent than, least intelligent than. So that's how you would do it. If it's like three syllables or more, then you use something else altogether. Oh yeah, I guess I went ahead because that's what they're saying over here. Avoid double comparisons. Do not say more happier. And so three-syllable or more adjectives like intelligent, beautiful, adventurous, happily. So use more and most before the adjective or adverb with more than three syllables. More beautiful, more adventurous, more happiness, most glorious. Adjectives that end in suffix such as OUS or FUL will never have an ER or EST ending. Use more or most. For example, more wonderful, not wonderfuler. Although if you're 6 years old and you're just trying to guess how to say it, this is how a 6-year-old would talk, which is kind of cute when a 6-year-old says it, but it is not cute when you write it in your essays. So anyway, what if it isn't more? What if it is less? If you are going the other direction in your comparison, always use less for the comparison and least for superlatives. I am less intelligent than you are. My brother is the least intelligent of us all. Oh, that's the truth. Yeah, my brother really is the least intelligent of all humans. The ride is less fun than that one. The ride is the least fun of all. I am less pretty than my sister. My cousin is the least pretty of the three of us. I snore less quietly than my brother. My sister snores the least quietly of us all. So least is used when you're comparing more than two things. Less is used when you're just comparing two things. That's how you can remember that. So there are some adjectives and adverbs that add neither er, es, or most, more, or most to make them comparative or superlative. So these are the exceptions. So we cannot say more better, more worse, or more or most best or most worst. Okay, we don't say that. So there's no more or most, and you don't say gooder, badder, or bester or worser. Okay, we don't talk like that. Instead, good, better, best, bad, worse, worse, many, more, most. So we use better, worse, and more when you have a comparative, when you're just comparing two things. Then we use best, worse, and most when we are comparing more than two things, such as let's see, he is the worst. Oh, this should be worst. Ooh, this book has a mistake. Wow, I saw a book mistake. Yeah, okay, so don't get so excited. So everybody makes typos. So best, and this should be worst, because this is supposed to be good, better, best, bad, worse, worst. So this should be a T here. Many, more, most. Okay, so this should be, because this whole thing is supposed to be superlatives. Anyway, everybody makes mistakes. So even grammar books make mistakes. Only one typo in the whole book. So hey, that's pretty good. That's still 99.99999. So there you go. Let me put it to you this way. I'm sure the book makes less mistakes than the mistakes in all my student papers, or than you, the student. So there you go. Look at this sentence. She likes pizza more than me. So here, what does the sentence mean? Does it mean she likes pizza more than I like pizza? Or does it mean that she likes pizza more than she likes me? Well, you probably would think it means that she likes pizza more than I like pizza, and that is usually the intention of the writer. However, the sentence actually means that she likes pizza more than she likes me. When you write a comparison like the one above, put in the missing words, even just in your head. Then you will use the correct pronoun. Compare these two sentences. She likes pizza more than I like pizza. Oh, okay, so you can't say she likes pizza more than me. You have to say she likes pizza more than I do. Okay, so when you have a pronoun that comes after the comparative, we use a subject pronoun. And then you're thinking, remember how we had that lesson on object and subject pronouns? I said that all subject pronouns come before the verb, and I said that all object pronouns like me come after the verb. This is an exception to that rule. So when you have a comparative, and then you have a pronoun that comes after the comparative, we use a subject noun. Why? Because in English, in Old English, we used to say, she likes pizza more than I do. Okay, that's complete. But these days, everybody just says, she likes pizza more than I. Nobody bothers to say the do anymore, right? So that's why we use a subject pronoun after a comparative. Okay, so that's the only time you have a subject pronoun that comes after the verb. So when you write a comparison, now that she was trying to make Arlene Miller was trying to make a point. Okay, people talk like this, but this is the correct way of saying it. We don't say me, we say I. So she likes pizza more than I like pizza. She likes pizza more than she likes pizza, or she likes me, or whatever. So more than comparative, and you have an object pronoun. But most people just say, she likes pizza more than I. And we don't say, she likes pizza more than me. Okay, you have to write she. She likes, anyway, that sort of thing. She likes pizza more than I do. So always use a subject pronoun after a comparative. And where are we? She is the two. So if you have two people, and you're just comparing two, she is the taller of the two sisters. Now if I wrote the word three, then you would have she is the tallest of the three sisters. So as long as you have two and you're comparing two things, then you have ER. But if you're comparing more than two things, it becomes EST. She likes school more than I do. So I is the correct answer. She says she likes me, but I really think she likes my sister more than I do. More than she likes me. No, more than I like her. You would be, or more than I. You would be more smart, more smarter if you used common sense. So here, this is like one syllable. So you would say you would be smarter if you used more common sense. The roller coaster was funner or more fun. This is one of those exceptions that even though fun is just one syllable, we don't say funner. We say more fun. One of those strange, strange exceptions. Which do you like, poetry or opera? So we are comparing two things. So therefore we use less because this is the comparative form. Least is if I say poetry or all literature in the world, then we would use least when we're comparing more than three things. The doll is more fragile than that one because this has got two syllables. Then you have to say more fragile than, less fragile than. Who makes you or your brother? So we're comparing two things. Who makes more money, you or your brother? Of all the types of food I know, so here, all the types of food in the world. Well, obviously there's more than two types of food. All the types of food so therefore we use a superlative. Of all the types of food I know least about, I know the least about Asian food. He talks when he is angry. He talks louder when he is angry. No, it sounds better to say more loudly. He talks more loudly when he is angry because loudly is an adverb that modifies the verb. So therefore, he talks more loudly when he is angry. The poodle is of the 6 dogs. Okay, so more than 2. As soon as you got more than 2, we got a superlative. When we got a superlative, we go for EST. So the poodle is the tallest of the 6 dogs here. The weather is more worse, or worser today than it was yesterday. So since we're comparing yesterday and today, and we don't say worser, and we don't say more worse, we say the weather is worse today than it was yesterday. We don't say more worse than. He is of the 2 of us. So there's 2 of you. Therefore, he is the less, L-E-S-S, adventurous of the 2 of us. She is shorter than I, because you're supposed to say the whole sentence. She is shorter than I am. My older brother is more truthful, truthfuler, most truthful than my twin brother. And so here, which one would you say? My older brother and my twin brother. So you're comparing 2 things. So my older brother is more truthful than my twin brother. Okay, so therefore that's 2 different brothers. And when you're comparing 2 things, it becomes a comparative more than. And when you have more than 2 syllables, when you have more than 1 syllable, then you got to have, you don't say ER. ER is only for something with 1 syllable. Misplaced modifiers. One of the easiest mistakes to make when you are writing is the misplaced or dangling modifier. A modifier is a word or phrase or clause that describes or modifies something. Adjectives and adverbs are modifiers. Participles are, if you remember from section 3.4, adjectives that come from verbs. Prepositional phrases, chapter 3, are also modifiers and can be used as adjectives or adverbs. And it is participles and prepositional phrases that are most often misplaced. In the English language, it is assumed that modifiers are placed near what they are modifying or describing. Look at these examples. Sitting in my lap, my cat yawned and stretched. And so sitting in my lap is an adjective clause, a reduced adjective clause, or a present participle, and it modifies my cat. Because what's sitting in your cat? What's sitting on your lap? Your cat. Laughing, she ran down the hill. So laughing, who is laughing? She is laughing as she runs down the hill. She heard on the news that there was a big parade on Thanksgiving. So these sentences are all correct. Now look at these sentences. Reading a book by the window, my cat scratched my hand. So did your cat open a book and started reading? So no, this is missing. While I was reading a book by the window, my cat scratched my hand. So therefore, this is a dangling modifier because it is missing a subject. Laughing, that joke seemed very funny to me. So here, who is laughing? Is it the joke that's laughing? No, it's supposed to be while I was laughing. That joke seemed very funny to me. So therefore, this is a dangling modifier. Whenever you're missing a subject, it's a dangling modifier. She heard about the parade on the news. So here you should say, she heard on the news about the parade. Okay, so these sentences are all incorrect. The modifiers are misplaced, not near what they are modifying, or dangling, not modifying anything in the sentence. So when it's missing a subject, like laughing, that joke seemed very funny to me, that is a dangling modifier. And then she heard about the parade on the news, that is a misplaced modifier. Whenever you have to place, whenever you have to correct the sentence by placing the words, by placing the modifier somewhere else to be closer to what it's modifying, then that's a misplaced modifier. I know that's a mouthful, huh? The first sentence says that the cat is reading a book by the window. The participial phrase, reading a book by the window, is a dangling modifier because it doesn't describe anything in the sentence. It's missing a subject. It's missing I. It is meant to describe I, but there is no I in the sentence. Note that it doesn't describe my hand because my hand wasn't reading either. So here is one of the correct ways to describe the sentence. While I was reading a book by the window, my cat scratched my hand. The second sentence says that the joke was laughing. However, I was laughing. So you don't say laugh. So then you don't say laughing, the joke was funny. You would say laughing, I thought the joke was funny, because this present participle, this reduced adjective phrase would modify I. Or you could rewrite it and just say, I laughed because I thought the joke was funny. I laughed at the funny joke. The third sentence says that the parade was on the news. The prepositional phrase on the news is in the wrong place. So you should say, on the news, I heard about the parade. Or I heard on the news about the parade. Either way. So it's very easy to put misplaced modifiers in your writing. So be very careful. He read from his new book, wearing glasses. So is your new book wearing glasses? No. So you would say, while he was wearing glasses, he read from his new book. I heard about, and this is a misplaced modifier, I heard about the volcano on the evening news. So the volcano heard about, the evening news. You would say, on the evening news, I heard about the volcano. While still in diapers, my mother went back to college. What was still back in diapers? Your mother? So the correct answer is, while the baby was still in diapers, my mother went back to college. Forgetting I had a cake in the oven, I took the dog for a walk. So this one, actually this is correct because you're the one who forgot. Okay, forgetting. Okay, this one, number 4 is correct. Possessives. Possessives are forms of nouns and pronouns that show ownership. Most of the time, making a noun possessive is pretty simple, but some problems can arise. Add an apostrophe and an S to most singular nouns to make them possessive. Boy, so the noun boy is singular. So if you're going to make it possessive, you have to say the boy's toy, or the book's plot, the dog's bone. Sometimes you have what it looks like a compound possessive. Here is what you do. My mom and dad's new car is in the driveway. Just make the last noun possessive because it belongs to both of them. My mom's and dad's new car are in the driveway. Make them both possessive since cars is plural. They each have a new car. So this one means each of them have their own car. This one means that both of them share the same new car. This one means you have mom's car could be green. When I was growing up, my mother's car was green and my dad's car was gray. So in my case, you would use this one. Now my cousin is poor. They only have one car. Between the two of them, I think 4 different people share the same car, and the son has to share because the mother and the father drive the same car. They're poor. So therefore, in my cousin's case, my mom and dad's new car, they share. And of course, my cousin's kids would complain. How come all the other kids in the neighborhood, the parents have 2 cars? How come we only got the 1 car? Or something like that. So that makes my cousin kind of embarrassed. But anyway, so for my cousin, my mom and dad's new car. And then here, if each of them have their own car, then you would say my mom's and dad's new car. Anyway, plural nouns. Add just an apostrophe to plural nouns that end in S. So if the noun is already plural, then you put the apostrophe after the S. So you would say the books, the boys' toys, the book's plots, the dog's bones, the bus's routes. So here you would put the apostrophe after the S if you have a plural noun. And then add apostrophe and S to plurals that end in something other than S. So children, men, mice. These words are already plural, made plural, okay, because they're irregular. If you want to say plural child, it becomes a child. If you want singular child, you would say a child. If you want a singular men, you would say a man. Singular mice would be a mouse. Therefore, in order to make it plural, you have to call it children, men, and mice. And don't ask me why that is. Why don't we just say mans? You got to ask the Brits that. Anytime you got one of those irregular formations, that has to do with the evolution of the language. And that has to do going all the way back to Britain, and you have to do research about British history, that sort of thing. Because English comes from Britain, and then the British got theirs from the Anglo-Saxons and the Germans. It depends on how far back in history you want to go with your linguistics. So that's why English majors study the history of English. And when you study the history of English, you have a better idea of why the words change, why you have weird, irregular verbs. So why don't you say, I thought it, or I thinked. And why is it think, thought? So there is a reason for that, but you have to go way back in history to find out what made it irregular and at what time and that sort of thing. Anyway, so when something is already plural and it ends in something other than an S, you just do apostrophe S just like you would with the singular nouns. Words that already end in S. Some singular words end in S or even SS. These words are generally treated the same as any other noun. To form the possessive, you will still add an apostrophe and an S. You can usually go by how you pronounce the possessive. The bosses belonging to the boss, like the boss's book. Bosses, and then if it's if it's one boss, okay, you would say one boss, you put apostrophe S. Many bosses, you put the S, you put the apostrophe after the S. Same thing with princess. One princess, and you have apostrophe S. Many princesses, and you put the S and then apostrophe, just like buses or tables. You put the apostrophe after the S if it's already plural. Mr. Douglas. Here, Mr. Douglas's. Then you have apostrophe S and then and that sort of thing. Words that end in X actually have an S sound at the end and are treated the same way. The fox's hole. And then here, if it's ES, If you make the foxes plural, you put the apostrophe after the S. Last names can be tricky because when you make them possessive, you are also making them plural. First, let's look at some singular possessives. Jean Thomas's desk. So that's pretty, you just put apostrophe S. John Smart's book. Anne Green's dress. How about plural possessive last names? First, you need to figure out how to make the name plural. Then you need to figure out how to make it possessive. Once again, it is best to go by how you would pronounce the name. Of course, you can always rewrite to avoid having to use the possessive, often the best idea. So the Thomas's house, so the singular of Thomas is Thomas, and then many Thomases is Thomas's. Then you put S apostrophe. And then Gonzalez's, so it's already, it already looks, for example, the name Gonzalez already looks plural. So if you want to make this singular word plural, you add ES, Gonzalez's house. The Green's house. This one is easy, the Green's house. So you want to avoid the situation, you would say the house that belongs to Mr. and Mrs. Thomas. You can avoid Thomas's if you simply just say the house that belongs to Mr. and Mrs. Gonzalez, something like that. To avoid the situation, the Thomas family's house, the house that belongs to the Gonzalez family. Okay, so I came up with something else. Some words that end in S do not add an apostrophe and an S to make it possessive. These are the exceptions. Words that end in ES with the sound of EZ add simply an apostrophe. Socrates or Hercules, because it already ends in an S. Okay, so S apostrophe. Note that Jesus and Moses are also exceptions and add simply an apostrophe for the possessive. Jesus apostrophe and Moses apostrophe. Possessive pronouns. Here are possessive pronouns. My, mine, our, ours, your, yours, his, her. His, her, hers, its, their, theirs, whose. Notice that none of them has an apostrophe in it. Remember the next time you are confused with its and its. Please do not put apostrophes in your plain old plural words because you will usually be wrong. There are very few plural words that have apostrophes. See section 11.10. Yeah, a lot of my students do confuse possessives with plurals. So here is a good exercise. Parallel, let's see, did they do anything? Parallel structure. Parallel structure, what do we mean by parallel structure? Let's look at a simple example of a sentence that is not written with parallel structure. My friends and I like shopping, going to movies, and to hike. So that's not a correct sentence. Instead, you have to say, my friends like shopping, going to movies, and hiking. So therefore, shopping, going, and hiking have to all be the same. If you do not have it the same, then it's not parallel, and it's incorrect. So when you are writing about similar things, you need to use similar structure. Shopping and going are parallel, but the hike is a different grammatical construction. It is not parallel. So you would say, my friends and I like shopping, going to the movies, and hiking. So ing. Here is an example that is a little more complicated. John felt that to do well in his new job, he had to impress his boss by writing his reports on time, by answering all his emails in a timely manner, and to be courteous to his staff. That's not right. So that's not correct, to be courteous. No, you got to say by being, because basically you have writing, answering, then you have to have being, ing, and that's how you make it parallel. Here is another example. Sarah thought that she was being a good parent when she let her kids do whatever they wanted and not telling them when they made bad choices. And so this is not when letting them to make bad choices. So here, this is not correct because you have ing and et here. So here is the same sentence with parallel structure. So you get rid of this ing, okay? So here you rewrite it and you would say, Sarah thought that she was being a good parent when she let her kids do whatever they wanted and when she kept quiet when they made bad choices. So here you got subject, verb, when, subject, verb, when, subject, verb. So therefore it's parallel. It is important to make your lists parallel. If one of your items is a complete sentence. Complete sentence? Ooh, I found a second mistake. Complete sentence. All your items should be complete sentences. If all items are phrases, they should be constructed in the same way. Here is a list that is not parallel. In this class, you will learn how to use the new software, how to design a newsletter, how to use special effects, how to publish your newsletter. This one is not parallel, so you would have to write how to write effective text, so that how to all match, you see. So that's incorrect. So when you write your thesis statement and you have your three reasons, then you have to have parallel structure in your thesis statement. And then let's see, after this, using numbers. So numbers, we could write a whole book about them, but let's keep it short and simple. The basic rule are as follows. In technical and scientific writing, write out numbers 1 through 10. In other words, if you're going to write a check, if you're going to write, he has one table, you would write out and spell out O-N-E. He has 10 tables. He has T-E-N, 10 tables. And so you write out numbers 1 through 9 and use numerals for all numbers higher than 9. In formal writing, non-technical and more literary writing, spell out all numbers up through 99. Here are some other rules for using numbers. In tables and diagrams, generally use numbers. If you have two numbers referring to the same thing in the sentence, treat them both the same way, either both written out or both as numbers. There are 9 girls and 21 boys in the group. This is not necessary if the numbers refer to different things. There are 350 children in the school, and they each have 4 textbooks. Never begin a sentence with a numeral. Rewrite the sentence to spell out the number or rewrite the sentence to spell out the number. 400 students graduated today. If you have 2 numbers in a row, rewrite the sentence or separate them with a comma. In 2009, 435 people worked for the company. Really large numbers, over 1 million, for example, may be expressed as follows. The company sold 21 million widgets last year. If a day comes before the month or stands by itself, use an ordinal, either spelled out or numeric. Okay, an ordinal number means like 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. That's an ordinal. That's an ordinal number. If a day comes after the month, the number is used. September 6th, 2000. Refer to Chapter 8 for information about commas and dates. Sometimes well-known numbers and dates of graduation are abbreviated. The blizzard of 09, the class of 75. Money is usually expressed in figures. We made 59 cents at our garage sale. For amounts less than $1, use the numeral and the word cents. This fan costs 75 cents, although with inflation, there's almost nothing that costs less than $1. Spell out approximate amounts. We have a few $100s. As a rule, we spell out fractions. I have 2/3 of a pizza left. Some style guides tell you to hyphenate the fraction only if it is an adjective directly before a noun. You can decide this one. For example, we need 3/4 majority to pass the rule. 3/4 of the people voted to pass the rule. Measurements should generally be expressed in numbers, even if they are below 10. The room is 5 feet wide and 9 feet long. Birthdays and anniversaries are generally spelled out. We are celebrating our 10th anniversary. References to periods of time are generally spelled out. We bought the house 30 years ago. More technical time frames are often used as numbers. My new job requires a 45-hour work week. Centuries can either be spelled out or expressed as numbers. I remember the 1970s well. I remember the 70s well. When expressing time, always use numbers with AM and PM. However, if there is no numbers, no time mentioned, use morning or evening. Meet me in the morning. Do not use PM or AM. If AM or PM is not mentioned, you can spell out the time or use numbers. Meet me at 8. Meet me at 8. Write decimals as numbers. I measured the window as 35.7 inches. For percentages, use numbers but spell out the word percent. Only 7% of the class received an A. If you refer to a number as itself, please use a figure. Please count to 99. Add 30 and 64 and then multiply by 7. To make a number plural, add S. No apostrophe, please. So the 1990s was a good decade. It was in the 70s all day. Oh, I see people make that mistake all the time. When spelling out numbers, hyphenate all numbers between 21 and 99, whether the numbers stand alone or is part of a greater number. 27, 27,000. Double negatives. There are negatives and then there are double negatives. No and not are often part of a negative sentence. I have no bananas. I do not have any bananas. Even though two wrongs don't make a right, two negatives do make a positive. Sometimes you might purposely use two negatives. Other times you might use a double negative by mistake. I cannot sit here and say nothing. This sentence is a double negative. And so when you say I can't say nothing, that's not correct. You should say I can't say anything. So try to avoid double negatives. So I can't say nothing is also not correct. You want to say I can't say anything. So avoid saying not and not. So the writer would say I can't say anything. So that's much better. It sounds better. I don't need no pencil. That's incorrect. You want to say I don't need a pencil. I can't see no one. I can't see anyone. She doesn't have no children. You mean she doesn't have any children. So any. So if you already have don't, you don't need to say you don't have to say no again. There are some words that don't sound like negative words, but they are. So do not use another negative with them by mistake. Barely, hardly, and scarcely are negative words. I can't barely see anything in the dark theater. So you should say, I can barely see anything in the dark theater. So this one is incorrect. I can't barely is not correct. You want to say, I can barely see anything. I can't scarcely is not correct. You want to say, I can scarcely. I can't hardly. That's not correct. You want to say, I can hardly. Suppose if you use three negatives in a sentence, the sentence goes back to having a negative meaning, but I wouldn't try it. I can't barely see. Yeah, there are people, some parts of the country that talk like this. Yeah, but this is not correct. I can't barely see nothing in this dark theater. So no, you don't even want to have triple. So I cannot, okay, forget it. I can't even fix it. You just simply say, I can barely see anything in the theater, and then just drop it. Apostrophes in plurals. We don't use apostrophes in plurals for the most part. So I have one word to say about putting apostrophes in plurals. Don't. There are very few exceptions. The great majority of the time, there is no apostrophe in a plural. Apostrophes go in possessives, not plurals. Unless the plural is possessive, of course. So check out chapter 11. When should you use an apostrophe in a plural? Answer: when not doing so would cause confusion. So with the capital letters A, I, and U, I got all A's on my report card. So here you can use an apostrophe. You can use, it can be a plural and you have an apostrophe S. You have too many I's beginning your sentences. There are two U's on that sign. With lowercase letters or abbreviations for clarity. However, note that if you are using a letter or word as itself, you would italicize the word, but not the S on the E. Don't forget to dot your I's. Are you still wearing your PJs? This is just about it. No other plurals need to be written with apostrophes, including numbers. Remember the 1990s. She must be in her 60s. She must be in her 60s. But you know what? I see people putting apostrophes on this all the time. That is a very common mistake. So let's be clear. Avoid vagueness. So I always tell students to avoid using this and it as a sentence. For that matter, I would tell students to avoid using there as a sentence. Writing can be vague or unclear in several ways. Most of the ways we will discuss here have to do with words that refer to something we are not quite sure about. We might begin a sentence with this or it. While in certain situations that may be all right in itself, if we don't know what this or it is referring to, there will be a problem. Look at this paragraph. Last summer, my family and I visited relatives in France. We stayed for 3 weeks and wish we could have stayed longer. While we didn't visit Paris, we did see many of the small villages in the countryside. We got to eat real French food prepared by the villagers, and we got to stay in small country cottages. This made it the best trip I have ever taken. What made what the best trip? Here is a better way to the ending. So avoid this made it, because this and it is vague. So what exactly are you talking about? And so you would say at the end, we went to France, the food was the best. So the food was the best food I've ever eaten, or something like that. We're going to France and staying in cottages. That was the best I've ever taken. So that's here. Eating real French food prepared by the villagers and staying in cottages made this trip to France the best I've ever tasted. The best I've ever taken. So here you want to get rid of this and it to avoid being unclear. The lonely witch. Witch is one of those pronouns that is used to begin an adjective clause that describes a noun or pronoun that precedes it. Here is an example. I bought this painting, which is by a local artist, which refers back to painting. However, sometimes when which is used, we don't know what it is referring back to. Technically, which should refer back to a word rather than an entire idea. So here is an unclear which. We went to France, where we ate real food and stayed in cottages, which made it the best trip, But which is a bit fuzzy. So here is a better use of which. See, here the which is far away from the food, because the which, whenever you have an adjective clause, you want the adjective clause to be next to what it's modifying. So here, if you think that the food was the best part of the trip, then you need to put the which next to the food, which is what she did. See, where I ate authentic French food, which was prepared by the little French cottages we stayed in. And so always you want to, whatever you modify with which or any kind of adjective clause, you got to put the adjective clause next to it. Otherwise, you end up with a misplaced modifier, or it becomes unclear. Sometimes he and she can be confusing and unclear. If you have too many subjects, like Jan and Marcia and Betty went to the store. She loves red dresses. Who is the she? Is it Betty? Is it Linda? Which of the three? So if you use too many subjects and then you use a personal pronoun, that's unclear. So that's basically when Betsy passed Lucy walking down the street. Oh, that's another mistake. Not waking down the street. Okay, so when Betsy passed Lucy walking down the street, she waved. So who waved, Betsy or Lucy? We have no idea unless the sentence is rewritten. Betsy waved as she passed Lucy walking down the street. Or you can rewrite it as when Betsy passed by her, Lucy waved. So that's unclear. Or that makes it more clear. So it is best not to use too many abbreviations in formal or academic writing. This includes resumes. Although a resume needs to be concise, you don't want to use too many abbreviations. However, there are indeed some things that are usually abbreviated. Mr., Dr., Junior, Miss, and Mrs. are always abbreviated when they are used as part of a name. Mr. Smith, Dr. Lang, Henry Foster Jr. If a company uses an abbreviation in its name, write the company name the same way they write it. Abbreviations that consist of all capital letters generally do not have periods. FBI, CIA, ASPCA. If you want to use an abbreviation, for example, FBI, spell it out the first time you use it and then put the abbreviation in parentheses. After that, you can use just the abbreviation. Names of academic degrees are generally abbreviated, except in very formal writing. Although they often consist of capital letters, they often do use periods, like Bachelor of Arts, BA, Bachelor of Science, BS, philosophy, Doctorate in Philosophy, PhD, Masters in Divinity, MD, or Masters in Doctor, Masters in Education, and Masters of Business Administration, MBA. Generally, an MBA does not have periods. Be consistent. Don't go back and forth between spelling out an abbreviation. Just the first time you use the abbreviation, write it out. If you are using a graph, table, illustration, and you are using too many abbreviations, make sure your audience knows what each abbreviation means. I try to tell students to avoid contractions in formal writing and to write out their contractions. So when you have a contraction, it's best to avoid contractions because contractions are too conversational for an academic research paper. I also tell students to avoid slang when writing an academic paper. Avoid using overused, trite, and general words like a lot, good, bad, great, stuff, things, bunch. Read your writing of these words. Use bunch only if you are talking about bananas. Really and very are also boring. How about extremely, particularly, exceedingly, or some other descriptive adverb? Cool and awesome. That's way too conversational. So you can't use that in your research paper. And you cannot use gonna, coulda, woulda, shoulda, cause, night, and light. They're not even real words. That's just used in dialogue. So you definitely cannot use that in your research paper. And try to avoid starting a sentence with and, but, or, and with and, so, and but, because you sound so conversational. You sound like you write the way you talk. And if you are in second grade, 8 years old, then you could say and. But you're not 8 years old anymore, so try to avoid. You shouldn't start a sentence with a conjunction. A conjunction is okay if it's in the middle of two sentences, like fanboys. But most people today think it is fine. but to me it sounds too conversational. When you write an academic research paper, use transition words. Transition words of opposition instead of but. Transition words of sequence instead of so. And transition words of addition instead of and. Okay? So I would use transition words like therefore, moreover. That would be transition words of addition. And however, on the other hand, those are examples of other ways of saying but. So you should Google for yourself your own transition word list so you can avoid saying and, so. It just drives me nuts when I read that in somebody's research paper. End a sentence with a preposition. Now, some teachers think it's okay to end a sentence with a preposition, but who are you going out with? But I think that when you end a sentence with a preposition, it sounds too conversational. The rule is you shouldn't end a sentence with a preposition. And so to me, see, here you have, she disagrees. Arlene Miller says, hey, it's okay to end a sentence. That's why I said some people do it, some people don't. But I don't like it. So it's up to you. Splitting an infinitive. This is another old wives' tale. Remember Star Trek's to boldly go where no one has gone before? Well, here the infinitive to go is split by the adverb boldly. Don't worry about it. Yes, it can always be rewritten, usually without losing too much of the effect. Once again, this is split. Most grammar teachers do not like a split infinitive, okay? But because, especially in American English, Americans are becoming more and more informal and their speech is becoming more and more informal, and it's seeping into the writing. And that's what I talked about earlier, how the language is evolving. And as the language is evolving, the language itself is becoming more and more familiar and becoming more and more conversational. So that's why some teachers say, yeah, you can end a sentence with a preposition, and others like Arlene Miller says, no, you cannot end a sentence. Oh, yes, you can end a sentence with a preposition. So, that's up to you. Same thing with splitting an infinitive. Well, you split the infinitive usually in a poem. It's okay to have bad grammar in a poem because the poet is doing it on purpose for an effect, you see. But I would just steer away from splitting infinitives, and I would steer away from ending a sentence with a preposition. Using they as a singular. Yes and no. That all depends on, I think that people are using a lot more they because, once again, the gender neutral. So if you are going to look up business writing and then they tell you not to use he and she and to use they and their more to be more gender neutral, yeah, so that's up for debate. Older people still prefer their he and she and his and her, and younger people prefer their they and their. So there is a generational gap in the use of pronouns. And so that's a whole other discussion about how to use pronouns in that way. So that goes beyond this chapter. So here, can I do these things? And that's it. I think that's it for this chapter. Whoa, chapter 11 covered a wide range of issues. So you could take this test to see how well you do. And I do believe that the answers are at the end of the book. Yeah, see Appendix G for the answers. So you should always be taking these tests at the end of every chapter just so that it reinforces the grammar rules. And you should also be doing all of the exercises. Now, I didn't go over all the exercises because I just don't have the time. But you should do all of the exercises in this book. Then you go to the back to see if you got the right answers. And if you got a wrong answer, then what is in the back of the book and you don't understand why that is, then you can always email me with grammar questions. So whenever I start saying that, you know it's the end of the video. So this was a really long video too. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me anytime.